There's a girl on my placement at the moment who's in a wheelchair, and obviously it's very hard for her to participate in lessons. She's only got slight movement in one of her arms and she can't really move very much, and often she is excluded from the lesson quite a lot. She obviously has a teaching assistant with her all the time, but I just feel sometimes she's excluded a lot. So I made her this, like when it's just generally the teacher says questions, she finds it very difficult to raise her hand, so I made her like a wand with a little hand on the end, so all she had to do was like lift it so she could be more included in the lesson, and she was really pleased with that, so I thought that was quite good.
I had a little boy in one of my classes, and he hadn't been statemented, he hadn't been diagnosed, if you will, with anything. And I was in a year 1 class, and he had the mental capacity of a 2-year-old, and he had a lot of other problems. And he used to get really disruptive during the lesson, things like picking chairs up, going and hiding behind sets of drawers when we were all on the carpet, trying to knock down the flip charts. And we had a couple of things we did with him. We had sort of a face on the board which could be pulled off at any point and taken to one of the special educational needs team, because this school had a special provision, and then they would know to come and sort of calm the boy down. But I think if the class are aware that there is a child who does have particular needs, because children aren't daft at the end of the day, and they do become quite accommodating. The children knew, well, he's having a moment, and they just knew to move away from him, and I'd never found it much of a disruption, really. So, as long as they're safe, it always seemed to work.
In one of my placements, it was kind of the same, really. He wasn't statemented, wasn't diagnosed with anything, but he had severe behavioural difficulties. It's kind of like you had to have something separate for him, because he just would not sit with the class. And the whole class knew, and they were so accommodating with it. They knew not to sort of make a big deal out of it. If he wandered off, they'd carry on with their work, and they wouldn't make a big deal out of it. But we had for him a rainbow chart on the board, and it was next to everyone's sticker charts as well. But he was, for everything good he did, he went up on the rainbow chart, and he had to reach gold. For everything bad he did, he went down. If he reached gold, then he got a reward at the end of the day. So it was he was motivated, and he did have his kind of separate table to work on, because he didn't work with the class very often, but he was allowed to work with whoever he wanted to, and because the class knew, they let him work with them.
I think other children respond really well. I've got an autistic little boy in my year 2 class at the moment, and he's quite a handful verbally. He uses a lot of swearing, a lot of aggression. He's never thrown a chair at me, but regularly when I've been observing the teacher in the classroom, if he's had to go out for whatever reason, I can see the chairs flying past in the corridor, because it's his TA that he gets really angry with. And one of the things that they use is the communicate to participate symbols. Have you seen they're like sort of pictorial symbols for around school, but you can have them from anything, from picture images of saying please shut the door, so they've got the words written underneath and a specific action that goes with them, and a picture, and they do timetables and things like that as well. And so if he's starting to play up, if you can preempt his behaviour, one of the ways that, because he plays up so verbally, one of the ways that you can combat that is to take the verbal element away and just point to the picture, and he knows exactly what he's got to do. And it's sometimes, you might have to point at it 3 times, and he's sort of looking at you, looking at the picture, but then eventually he knows what he's got to do. He's not going to get any response out of me whatsoever. I'm not going to get into an argument with him. The other children in the class are doing their own thing, and you just point, and eventually he will concede, which is quite nice.
I had a little boy with Asperger's, and he had his workstation, which he loved. He didn't actually want to work on the tables with the others, but then sometimes he'd have a chosen partner and he'd choose somebody to come work with him. And he also had a spot on the carpet, so when we were having carpet time, he would have that on the floor, and that is where he would sit, so that was his little area. But I found during activities, he loved having the responsibility of getting involved. It did sometimes get to the point that he didn't want other people to get involved. Like we were doing capacity with water, so he was pouring the water through the funnel and he really enjoyed that, but then he wanted to do it solely him. But I played on that a little bit for when he was getting too much for him, and you could tell that because like he would start screaming, and that's when he just couldn't handle it. It was getting too much, and that's I used the responsibilities by saying, can you take these mugs to the staff room or something, and it got him out of the classroom and it let him have that space to just breathe, but it gave him a job to do. So I wasn't just sending him out, but he had a purpose for it going. Or I gave him the choice, like often he went down to the special needs unit, so but he quite with that syndrome, they like their own space, they like that isolated time. So I think it's quite important that you don't try and push them into group situations.